Back in May, the government decided they were going to address the affordability crisis here in the United States, which is something I was pretty excited about. Not only did they want to address it, they wanted to talk about ADUs, manufactured housing, and all these different ways that people could get into a home of their own. They also talked about multi-units and rental units as well. It wasn't the update I was expecting with all the things they had said in their original action plan, but just like anything, there's always a lot of words. So we're just going to be talking over the things that I think are important to us, especially if you're trying to buy an affordable home of your own. The first section is just them addressing exactly what this whole action plan was to address. Of course, the affordability crisis. We all know that. It says to close the supply gap and expand affordable housing. The administration continues to urge Congress to act on a bipartisan basis. That's kind of a joke. To support the construction of preservation of affordable housing this year. That is asking a lot. Congress should expand rental assistance, assist aspiring homeowners with down payment assistance, and help create a more equitable housing market. You know, I've read this whole entire document and it talks a lot about rentals, but it doesn't talk a lot about buying affordable housing until the end, and we'll get into that. But it says the administration has acted where it can directly address affordability, including for low-income renters. For example, last week, the Department of Housing and Urban Development announced awarding more than 19,000 new home choice vouchers, most expansive allocation of flexible new rental assistance in 20 years. So again, it's addressing renters that are looking for low-income housing, but it doesn't really address what's going on with people trying to buy their own house. They're also addressing the finalization of regulations to make it easier to build mixed income housing, housing that includes very low income tenants, and housing sparsity in populated rural areas by reforming income guidelines for main source of financing for affordable housing, low income house tax credits. Extending the low income tax credits deadlines to ensure affordable housing projects, reforming the streamlining of financing programs through Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Continuing to promote more housing options for transit and other modes of transportation. Coordination of the transportation and housing planning, rewarding jurisdictions that have removed barriers for housing development. Okay, so that's their plan. All right, so this is how it breaks down. This first section, it says right here, the IRS and the Treasury Department are going to make it easier for them to fund projects in areas that are normally designed for single-family homes and now are going to use those areas for multifamily homes. They're going to be using those for low-income housing apartments, not homes. Let's move forward. The next section gives the developers that are interested in doing more of these types of projects more time to get them done, because with the pandemic, it took them more time to get all their paperwork together in order to get the funding that they would need. So it's giving them an extension on the time that they would need for it. This whole other section talks about how FHFA and Freddie Mac will help with financing of the projects, but the projects have to have at least 20% of the units made for affordable housing. So if they're building a condo complex and it's just a regular condo complex, they'll give them funding if they use 20% of that project for affordable housing. This is common in bigger cities like Portland, Oregon, and some cities around California as well. This next section talks about where they're getting the money from. So it says the money is going to be from the American Rescue Plan, and it already has been used in some projects already. This is the example they gave. In New Hanover County, North Carolina, the revised guidance permitting for the SLFRF to finance long-term loans allowed development for stalled 278 unit Starway Village apartment complex to proceed with tenant move-in tentatively scheduled for 2024. So it was a stalled project. They couldn't get it going. And because of the money that they received, they were able to get it going. But it's only 278 units. That's not really that much. It's kind of a drop in the bucket, but at least it's helping. This next section says we're building more affordable rental units with the federal financing backs risk sharing program. The section talks about how they are going to share the financial risk of building these type of apartments and preserve more than 9,000 homes in rental homes. It's just rental units. It's not homes. They're really just talking about rentals. So this section is the section they've gotten the Department of Transportation involved, and they want to elevate communities that are willing to change some of their zoning from single-family dwellings into multi-units. This whole section talks about how the Department of Transportation will support support an area building these new apartment homes with more infrastructure, roads, and bridges. They're also going to be providing $30 million in planning and project development funding for increased housing supply. The DOT, the Department of Transportation, and HUD are partnering and launching a $30 million Thriving Communities program to help communities plan and develop transformative infrastructure projects. When this came out in May, they kept talking about all sorts of different ways they were going to be putting more affordable homes on the market, not just ones for renting, but this whole thing so far has talked about rental units. So anyways, this year the DOT released 3 funding applications for competitive grant programs totaling nearly $6 billion in funding that reward jurisdictions that have adopted land use policies to promote density and rural Main Street revitalization. I couldn't even say it for a second. They've already allocated some of these funds, and this is some of the projects that they've already worked on. The 6th Street Bridge construction project in Rochester, Minnesota, the DOT has committed nearly $20 million to the historic project that will be a multi-span bridge on the 6th Street to connect the street and the trail across from the Zumbro River. If I said that wrong, I'm so sorry, but that looks like Zimbro to me. Now, there is another project as well, the Westward 3 project in Colorado. The DOT has provided over $24 million to this project. It will construct 3 new mobility hubs in the Grand Junction, Rifle, and Glenwood Springs. The project will increase accessibility, condition, and service provided in the region's bus system. This is where it gets interesting. They mention a little bit further down about ADUs. So right there it says, zoning standards incentivized policies should focus on encouraging affordable housing. I agree. Including accessory dwelling units, construction by use in residential zoning and districts, incorporating manufactured housing as a viable, affordable strategy. It's the first time I ever even heard them talk about manufactured housing in that way, where they are trying to expand it and make it easier for people to find a place to put their manufactured home. Now, this next section is talking about how they're wanting to promote more innovation when it comes to these specific homes. And they say that they're going to be rewarding people that come up with these more innovative ways, first of all, to get them done quickly and more efficiently. Now, the section also says that this will be giving grants to companies that accelerate the affordable housing production and innovation, building and techniques. They mentioned that they will showcase all types of homes, and they actually even had a showcase at the National Mall. If you're interested in doing this for your community, you can actually look at their how-to guide. They show you how to do it, and they actually even have 6 project profiles that you can look into and see if it could work for your area. And then they'll give you some funding for it. So not only are you helping people in your community that are finding it hard to find an affordable home, but you're also helping the community as a whole, because you're going to be getting more infrastructure in your area for some of the roads and lights and bridges and everything else that you would need. So it's like a win-win-win. And it's federal money. It's not from your local taxes. Now, this is my favorite part. This is where they talk about institutional investors. They realize now that institutional investors are the problem, and it's becoming more of a problem. And they even said, like, when you scroll down just a little bit, they talk about that investors' activity has increased since the start of the pandemic, driven by investors with more than 1,000 properties. They know that institutional investors are taking up a big chunk of the pie when it comes to affordable homes. They're going to be addressing this issue even more because they realize that the problem is growing. And they're going to have a registered for event. You can talk about it. And they're going to be focusing on that more in their next update. Just recently, the HUD had a bunch of foreclosed properties. And in 2 recent sales, the equity conversion mortgage notes secured by vacant properties, a total of 1,393, were awarded, with 61% of the notes awarded to a nonprofit and profit joint venture bidders. For the July 27th, 2022 sale, the purchasers were told that they couldn't put their houses back up for sale. So they bought foreclosed properties. You can fix these up and put them back up for sale, but you can't give them to institutional investors unless you have given at least 30 days for the individual person the opportunity to make a bid on those homes first. This is a step in the right direction. They've been doing this for quite some time, even before the pandemic and institutional investors getting involved in all this, which was go to HUDhomestore.gov, and they would give like the first 14 days to owner occupants to make a bid for the house before an institutional investor could come in. Now with this program, they're saying you have to wait 30 days before an institutional investor can come in and bid on those specific homes. I have to say, though, I'm really interested what they're going to say about institutional investors, because for the last several years, they've kind of been brushing it under the rug, telling us that, that's not really an issue and they only have like less than 3% of the market. Well, it's so obvious now that they obviously have more than 3% of the housing market. Now, the affordability crisis isn't going away anytime anytime soon. And I am glad that they are making progress, but I'm not sure if this is going to be enough anytime soon. Well, let me know your opinion in the comments section below. If you're not sure what's really going on with the affordability crisis here in the United States, you're going to probably want to watch these videos right here. My name is Kristina Smallhorn, your real estate whisperer, and I tell you all this because good real estate information matters.